IPMNation.com.
All right, here we are, IPMNation.com/ANB now on Mortal Up Radio. We're just seconds away from kicking it off over on Facebook, but I wanted to stop quickly and say hello and thank you for being a part of All Natural Being here on Mortal Up Radio. Who knows what's wrong with this? But we're getting ready to go.
From the Outpost Studios in Columbus, Ohio, you're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Brought to you by IPMNation.com. Get ready for the gong heard round the world.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Ay, ay, ay. Welcome, good evening, and thank you for stopping by the number one rated show here on IPMNation.com, episode 267 of The Gong Heard Round the World. You're in to All Natural Being, broadcast as it happens here on IPMNation.com, and Facebook for Fly on the Wall video. I guess just because we can. But in any event, live from the Outpost Studios here in Columbus, Ohio, with rebroadcast, as you know, on iTunes and iHeartRadio. Greetings wherever you are, here in the Garden of the Mortals. Top of the day from the truest parts of your mind. Because life, it's your labyrinth, your shot at running the table. That's why we're always putting your heart's highest priority at the very top of the list, placing your primal scream front and center in your life, reinstalling and reinstating the true wit and wisdom of your inner whisper. Because I believe it's time to reboot your robust, to find your ferocious, to out-brutal the brutal that is the cut and shuffle that fate deals you on a daily basis, and to bring your own bold once and for all. But before we hit it this evening, hello to my friends here in the United States, Canada, Mexico, the UK, my good friends in Ecuador, China, the Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, France, Turkey, Japan, Sweden, Singapore, South Africa, Israel, Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands. To those joining us from all over the globe, it's great to have you with us. I truly am fired up to be driving your bandwagon, to be your virtual hitchhiker this evening, to be your biggest fan, to always be avidly you. So let me ask you, are you tired of being institutionalized by the intentions of others, convicted by the constructs of another, remanded to a prison of rhetoric? Well, I was too. And that's why it's time. It's time to mortal up. So what do you say? Let's go kick in some doors. And we've got all kinds of cool things to hang out and talk about this evening, including, I wanted to mention this real quick. I did a post, if you're familiar with the Stoic philosopher Cicero, he says when souls are mollified, when they're dissipated, right, when they're not themselves, a bee can sting. So when we don't channel our natural brilliance, when we don't have who we are at our core, right, who we ultimately are at our core, when we don't have that, then we suffer the slings and arrows. We're to that point where whatever attacks us from the outside, it has a chance to get in because we have dissipated our souls. We have mollified our souls. So yesterday I did a little experiment over on Facebook before I hop in the thread here and say hello to everyone. You think, how many times can you turn a volume button down, Bri? Let's get with the program. But in any event, I put up a post yesterday on Facebook that said, if you can be shamed, in quotes, you should be ashamed. And I had a couple of people saying to me, well, wait a minute, if someone shames you, it's right that they shame you? Well, that's not what I said at all. If you can be shamed, if someone can look at you and make you feel, if their rhetoric can ruin your day, my post was that then you should be ashamed. Not for what they've said, but what you allowed those words to do. And I go back to Cicero. When our souls are mollified, when they're dissipated, when they're depressed in some way, it's then that the bee stings. So when we don't channel our all-natural being, when you don't draw your line in the sand, when you decide, yeah, well, what the heck, I'll suffer the slings and arrows today, then you get what you get. So that if you can be shamed, if you've gotten to the point where you allow the words of another to ruin your day, then you should be ashamed. And that's the point that I was trying to make yesterday in the post. Also, let me say hello to everyone here in the group. Janile, hello. And I owe you a prayer bowl as well. Thank you for all the shares, Janile. John, how are you, sir? Nice to see you. Henry, nice to see you. Rita, nice to see you as well. Brian Bouchard, always nice to see you, my friend. Dan DeAngelis, how are you, sir? I got an email today, Dan, about something you're involved in, and you had better believe I'm going to respond to that email. So I hope they're ready for my critique, my compliment of everything that you've done for me at Entreport. So I hope they're ready. But nice to see you as always. Kelly, thank you so very much. Kelly, big day tomorrow. I don't want to say the number, but big day tomorrow. So I'll be thinking about you. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. We were talking this evening about what happens when we allow ourselves to be depressed to such a way that the rhetoric of the outside world gets in and ruins us. But also this evening, I want to talk about, I've been promising all along that we'll get a toll-free number, and we have a toll-free number, and it's one of the, you'll see. No, Dan DeAngelis, nice to see you. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to filling it out. So one of the things I've been talking about is, I wanted a toll-free number. We've invested in the ability to have people call into the studio and interact and everything else. So I've been saying all along that I was told, I have to say that standard rates apply, right? That if you call, make sure you check with your phone company or, whoever to make sure that, those rates are going to apply. So what we did is we went ahead and got a toll-free number, and I'm having a lot of fun with this because the toll-free number that you can call here into the studio is 855-GUTLESS, GUTLESS. Now, there's some other ones we're working on for next week, but I'm just going to have a little bit of fun with this. 1-855-GUTLESS. And what I'd love to do is have people call in. If you've seen an example, you're welcome, Kelly. I'll be thinking about you. Hope to bump into you, as a matter of fact. If you've been thinking of examples, like I saw one today where someone put up something on Twitter. I know it's like a pet peeve of mine, right? But put up something on Twitter. And then when he caught all kinds of crap for it, he decided to take it down. He decided to delete it. So when crafting this idea of an 800 number, 855-GUTLESS, I'd love it for people to call in and go, have you seen examples of gutless behavior? I mean, have you seen examples where you go, like this one lady that called the police because a young girl was selling bottled water on the street corner? Or there was an example of a politician who was caught on camera taking down his opponent's street signs, right? Like if you didn't see his opponent's street signs. And this is the caliber of people you have running for public office, I guess, in some cases, right? But taking down the street signs of this opponent so that you wouldn't see the name and maybe you wouldn't think of it when you went to the booth. But, just plain gutless behavior. Because here's what happens. At some point, if we don't stand up to the gutless, it becomes not a disease, but it almost becomes like the flu, where more and more gutless behavior is just tolerated, and then you and I are subject to it. So I wanted to come up with a way where people could call, and it's live during the show, but after the show that you could call, or you're welcome to text us at that as well. 855-GUTLESS, 855-GUTLESS, for examples of people that have forgotten that they're human beings, not ultimately human gettings, but they're human beings, and what exactly that means to the rest of us in the world. Good evening, Janelle. Nice to see you as well. 855-GUTLESS if you want to give us a call. I'm hoping that's up and working now. But what we're focusing on this evening is how we can inoculate ourselves from all the craziness that goes on in the world. And the ultimate inoculation is to realize who you are at your core and what you're ultimately capable of. And then if we're able to do that and stand up to gutless behavior whenever we see it, then what's left over is our indigenous smile. What's left over is that part of you that can pull off nearly anything. That part of you that's unstoppable. But then we see all these gutless people running around, right? And they don't want to put their heart's highest priority top of the list. They don't want to channel their inner wit and wisdom. They like going through life just bland and blah. Truly gutless behavior, like you know them, the walking, talking Venus flytraps in your life. And then what happens is the moment that you say, nah, you know what? There's more to life than this. I'm not going to live it this way. I'm not going to do it this way. Then the slings and arrows come out, right? Because gutless behavior, it's easier to critique you for wanting to be happy. It's easier to critique you for wanting to put your heart's highest priority top of your list. It's easier to have all kinds of negative, gutless things to say than it is, I suspect, so they think, to actually experience that for themselves. So you hear all the time, people are going to be crying all the time. Oh, well, you can't do this. You can't do that, right? You know what I'm talking about. And life just seems full of it. And then I think at times it begins to drag us down because it sucks up a lot of bandwidth having to put up with everyone else's pathologies. But ultimately, when we get to the point where we say, no, we're not going to tolerate gutless behavior anymore. We're not going to stand and have the overall or the overarching understanding of what it means to be truly human watered down by truly gutless action. And if you've been following the show at all for any period of time, you realize that I'm fairly certain that your ego has a shelf life. And it's there in the very beginning of your life. But that ultimately, you no more want to hold on to your ego as the year gets on than you want to go into the back of the refrigerator and go, oh, this milk expired 3 months ago. Bam, damn, I'll bet you this is some tasty milk. Right? It expires. It's no longer good for you. Hello, Dana. How are you? And Janice as well. Thank you for joining us. Dana Lee. Janice Brawdy, thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. Hey, back at you. We're talking this evening about what it means to not have, as Cicero said, a mollified soul. So that the bees can't sting you. So that we don't have to suffer the slings and arrows. What it takes to remember who we ultimately are, who you ultimately are, and maybe just as important, everything that you're ultimately capable of. And that when you do that, it's my belief that fate goes, there's got to be an easier mark out there. Got to be an easier way for me to derail some other destiny than to pick on someone that truly knows who they are. We talk about natural resources all the time. Your grit, your agility, your stamina, those things that you're able to do day in and day out to put your heart's highest priority top of your list. And that maybe, just maybe, if you and I are busy at a certain age, still running around with water wings, still running around with training wheels, still letting the gutless in life dictate what it is that we do, then maybe it's a good thing that we have no one else to blame but ourselves. And that if ultimately we wake up one day and we can be shamed by another, maybe there's something to Cicero. Maybe we should be ashamed of ourselves if we let other people constantly reach in and control us, have the remote control, like we're puppets on the end of the string. But I've got to ask you, what would you do if you could channel your all-natural being? If you could channel your wild within, what would you do? What is your heart's highest priority? What would that mean for you? If you spent your day, what's your number? Say it slow so I can type in the feed. All right. 855-488-5377. 855-488-5377 or 855-Gutless. Because all you have to do is look around anymore. The egoistas, the intelligentsia. You look around at some of the political class, some of the established religious class. Everyone and their brother that's perfectly content telling you what you can do, how you should live, as long as it doesn't violate what they feel. Well, how about what you feel? How about all the egoistas, absolutely confident that they know what's better for you than you know what's better for you? You know what, Jan, you bring up a good point. Let me just type that in myself. And what would life be if you weren't subject to them anymore? What would life be like if you were to decide once and for all that you're not going to listen to all the naysayers, you're not going to listen to these walking, talking pits of quicksand, and that you decide, yeah, it takes a little courage, but it's time to abandon this sense, right? And balance in terms of a healthy sense of self and a diminished sense of ego. So that no matter all these different things that come at you, you go, yeah, I'm good. I think I can handle that. Not to worry. 855, thank you, John, very much. 855 Gutless. Now, it'd be just my luck, right? That particular line, for whatever reason, I think Sue just did. All right, so someone tell me if the line's coming through. So the discussion this evening is just that, what it takes to be courageous in life, and what it takes when all around us we're surrounded by people that have decided to pack it in. We're surrounded by people that say, no, I'm pretty good having a watered-down life. I'm pretty good in mediocrity. But then what happens when you reach a particular age? And then it hits you. And then what are you going to do about it? You go, you know what? I should have put my heart's highest priority top of the list. I should have done everything I could. As Kelly says, peace begins when expectation ends. When people don't put expectations on us, we're able to be who we really are instead of what others want us to be. Or how to act and what to say. Absolutely, Kelly. And I would say at times, some of the people that we have to look at, let me just say for myself, some of the guy that I have to look at from time to time to put expectations on myself is my own sense of ego. Right? There's sometimes where I can just be, forget about being my own best friend. Sometimes I can be my worst enemy. And I think it comes from complacency. It comes from worrying about what everyone else is thinking. But how much life is squandered by letting other constructions run our lives? How much of who we truly are stays on the sidelines because we're worried about offending other people. We're worried about outraging other people. And the mosquitoes, as Cicero said, are the bees. The bees are going to sting. No two ways about it. The bees are going to sting when you have a mollified, watered-down soul. It's almost as if they can sense the victim in us. And it's pretty gutless behavior when you think about it. Have any other examples? 855-488-5377. 855-488-5377. It's toll free. Gutless. Of other examples that you've seen, maybe you've seen some in the news. I saw one the other day where a neighbor called the police because one of the kids cutting their neighbor's grass had run over into their yard by accident. Kid didn't know where it was, so they called the police. Or you get these all the time when you hear people going to the drive-up window, they get the wrong order, so they call 911. I have friends that are 911 operators. They're never ever thrilled with that behavior, to be honest. Or you get with people, I've been thinking about it a lot lately. There's the argument of, well, what are you doing about children that are being separated? And I don't think any of us here would ever want that. We wouldn't want it for ourselves. We wouldn't want it for our friends. And candidly, probably wouldn't even want it for our enemies to have little kids separated from their parents. But then I take a deep breath and I go, well, how about all the kids in New York City, in Chicago? How about all the kids that are separated from their parents now here in the States? But it's easier for the intelligentsia. It's easier for the egoistas to stand up and pout and scream and holler and stomp. Right? Truly gutless behavior. Instead of going to work and seeing what you could do to help the people here, right here, our neighbors that are separated from their kids, it's easier to scream about something going on. Antifa, people running around with masks. Is there more gutless behavior than to attack a glass window storefront with a baseball bat and a bandana on your face? Can you think of more gutless behavior than that? But what happens is it goes out through society. It gets to the point where people just start accepting gutless as a way to be. And if not accepting gutless in our own lives, then at least getting to the point where we can say, oh, well, you know what? I guess we're just going to have to tolerate it. And I think what gets confusing to most people is it's not that there's a moral majority or a silent majority. It's the silent minority. It's the gutless people running around with bandanas on their faces that no one wants to deal with. So they say, oh, great, let's just go ahead and cave. Let's just go ahead and give in to them. But what does that ultimately end up meaning for a human life? And what does that ultimately end up meaning for what we teach our kids? For what we teach the people around us? So ultimately, I guess, we have to decide just how gullible, just how gutless do we really want to be when it comes to all these people pushing back against us, when it comes to all the people willing to trap you and making sure that you never put your heart's highest priority top of the list. Maybe they figure that if you're busy putting your own priority top of your list, you can't do anything to put theirs. So it's selfish in a way, still gutless. But I don't know if I could get 855 selfish. I guess I could have tried. I like gutless. But then ultimately we wake up one day and go, you know what? This might be the only run I get. We had mentioned last week in one of the shows I was traveling and I saw 14,000 people already. What are we in? Just into July? 14,000 people on a highway in this particular state were killed in accidents since the first of the year. 14,000 people who I'm pretty sure none of them thought, oh, I'm just going to head on up the highway a few hours, then I'll turn around and come home. I bet none of them thought that would be the last trip they ever took. But ultimately, not to be a metaphor, ultimately, we're all kind of subject to that. We never know when our last days will be. So ultimately, we have to decide. Are we going to be gutless? Are we going to be gullible? Or are we going to draw the line in the sand and say, no, whatever it takes for me to be creative, courageous, I guess the same thing really when you think about it. Whatever it takes for me to be creative, whatever it takes for me to be courageous, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to let everybody, and I thought of Marcellus today in a little post that Henry Noel had put up. I thought of Marcellus when I said chop blocked. How much longer will we wait? Will we stand by and let fate chop block us before we go, no, you know what? I'm done. I'm done being gutless. I'm done being gullible. I'm done listening to all the intelligentsia. I'm done listening to all the egoistas. And all you got to do is just, not that you would want to, but if you get a chance to check out the news, check out anything going on in terms of politics, not just in the States, but in politics all over the world. I saw an article the other day where they think, oh, now, if it is to be, it is up to me. John, you're absolutely correct. And maybe the inverse of that is true also, John. If it is not to be, it's still up to me. Whether we're going to do it or not do it, we are responsible. 855 GUTLESS. I'd love an example. If there's something that you think, oh, Bri, you think that's gutless, listen to this. And I know, right? I'm on this Twitter thing, as I said at the beginning of the show, where they go, oh, this is funny, or oh, I'm a tough guy, or oh, I'm a tough girl, right? Oh, this will be great. I'll tweet this. And then when the backlash just smacks them down, they delete it. I tend to be a bigger fan if they would put it up and then stand by their guns. Stand by what they thought was so funny, what they thought was so cute, what they thought would get a ton of likes. And in my estimation, it's gutless to put something up and then to pull it down. What does that say? When it comes to something that we believe important in our own lives, that we're willing, just because the number of down votes or mean tweets or anything else, what if it is that we're going to abandon? Now, I'm not saying that everything that goes up on Twitter is a great idea. Obviously, it's not. But if you're going to put it up there, if you're going to hit that enter button, or what is it on Twitter, tweet, or whatever that button is, if you're going to hit that button, then at least have the courage to stand by what you thought was so cute, what you thought was so cunning, what you thought was so crafty. But don't be a coward. Put it up and then take it down, especially when it gets too hot. Hey, Marcellus, I was just talking about you, brother. Thank you earlier for the chop block. I'll never forget that term between you and I, chop block. And we're talking about what it takes to have all the courage of an index finger, right? Oh, that's one badass index finger. To hit enter or tweet or whatever it is. You've got the courage to do all that. But then as soon as it gets a little hot in the kitchen, as soon as people start complaining and going, oh, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you did that. Oh, let me go over and delete that. What kind of courage is that? How gullible do we have to be to believe that a society overrun by these gutless dweebs is the society we want to live in? If it's so cunning and so crafty and so cute and so comedic, leave it up there. And it just makes you wonder. Courage of the pen. At least in things that are printed in papers, once you get it out there, it's not like you can run around and buy every newspaper in the city. But with Twitter, I guess maybe on Facebook as well, you could post different things up there and you can pull it down. I will tell you, yesterday when I went in and put up the post, if you can be shamed, you should be ashamed. Would have been real easy at some point to go, that didn't work really well. Only 3 people shared it, but you don't pull it down. You stand by what you believe in. You stand by your heart's highest priority, top of your list. And technically, if it's something that you have to pull down after the fact, it was never your heart's highest priority. There had to, at some level, you knew that wasn't the way to be. But it's truly gutless behavior to call to attack someone else. It's truly gutless behavior to threaten or to offend. If you look at what's going on in the news, you look at what's going on in the world. I saw an article that said, these governments have a secret race to see who can become the biggest nuclear power. Right? Who can amass the most weapons. And these are the people that we put in office to represent you and I? The people that think that the best shot is to go ahead and create more weapons than the other guy so that ultimately one day something could happen where we end up killing each other? Talk about gutless. Talk about not having any skin in the game. Hey, Candace. Nice to see you. Hope all's well. We're talking about maybe there comes a time in our life where we just decide not to be gullible anymore. Maybe there comes a time in our life where we say, you know what? I deserve to put my heart's highest priority top of the list. I deserve not to be talked down to. But just as importantly, not to be talked down to by myself, not to be talked down by the reflection in the mirror. Not to buy into this people who live an absolutely gutless life. Now, I suspect if that's cool with you, if that's something that you want, then you could go, yeah, I'm good. Gutless is good. But for the rest of us, maybe having skin in the game is the genius of life itself. Maybe saying, I'm in no matter what the cut and shuffle of fate, no matter what the slings and arrows, no matter what happens to derail me, no matter what I'm certain is going to be one way. Hi, Candace. Nice to see you as well. That I'm certain it's going to be one way, but if the rug's yanked out from underneath me, it's not the time to wrap myself in that rug and sit in the corner and cry. There's a book out now Own the day, own your life. And I thought if I could have ever gotten to the author, I would have suggested own the minute, own your life. What can you do right now to put your heart's highest priority top of the list? Because that's the key. Because it gives other people permission to put their heart's highest priority top of the list as well. And that one day we wake up and it's too late to do anything about it. Well, let's not make today, let's not make tomorrow that day where we wake up and go, I wish I would have given it a better run than that. Let's not make tomorrow the morning. You know, I was out running around today with one of my sons. And he looked up at me after the run and he goes, my power has lost all its power. My power has lost all its power. Let's make sure that tomorrow morning isn't that morning that you and I wake up and we have to look in the mirror and go, my power has lost all its power. And that you're all natural being. Does it take a little bravery? Yes. Does it take a little courage? Yes. Does it take a little tenacity? Yes. But you have all those things. And don't buy into the byline. Don't buy into the pathology of the gutless, of the intelligentsia, of the egoistas running our world. Hi, Sarah. Hope you're well. Right? And what it would take ultimately to go, I'm not going to settle for this anymore. I don't know how much time I have left. It's limited, whatever it is, but I'm going to work to put my heart's highest priority top of my list. And I'm going to not listen to all the naysayers. I'm not going to listen to all the people that say, oh, I can't pull it off. I don't deserve it. It isn't right. I'm going to ignore the gutless that don't have the courage to get in and mix it up. The gutless who say, "Oh, you know, is the legislative leviathan or the bureaucratic behemoth that I've talked about before." Hey, please tell Colton and Bart I said hello. But what does it take for us to stand up to it? Because the payoff for standing up to the gutless is we're going to have a life that we're just going to be able to grin from ear to ear. Not every day. There'll be setbacks. But let's not be like the gutless that just pack it in. Let's own the moment, magnify the moment. What can I do right now for the next 20 minutes to put my heart's highest priority top of the list? All right, let's take a quick call. Good evening. Welcome to All Natural Being.
Good evening, sir.
Henry, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine.
Very good, very good. We were just talking about the new toll-free number, right? In case anyone wants to call in, they don't want to get stuck with a call. The 855 Gutless. And we were just talking about, how people tend to buy into this sense of self where they're going to let people run all over them. And they're going to let the silent majority, if you will, dictate how they smile in life. So we were just kind of kicking that around. Any examples of some things that you've seen of late that would rise to the occasion of gutless behavior?
Oh, wow. Where do we start?
Right.
Think about exactly look what's going on in Washington right now. What's been going on in Washington over the last several presidencies. Between Twitters and hiding behind the mask of this anonymity, although everybody knows who they are. It's a sad way to try to present your point of view, where you can lambaste somebody completely, out of touch with what's going on, and you get to hide behind all that stuff by some hashtag name.
Right.
But in this case, what's going on within Washington, here's stuff being done, but it's almost like as if children are playing. It's calling each other bad names. It's highly unprofessional.
Well, it's. I heard something today about poor Ivanka Trump President Trump's daughter and just how she's being attacked by some of the comedians and this and that. And I hope that she's thick-skinned enough to just let it roll. But then you look at some of those things and you go, you want to be a fan of the First Amendment, and I think it's great. So instead of attacking what the people are saying, I like the idea of going, you know what, it's not anything other than oversensitive hearing. Let them say what they want to say. Let them do what they want to do. Let them, right, in terms of not leading up to physical violence, but as far as people having the ability and the right to say what they want to say, you and I have the ability and the right to hear what we want to hear. And I go back, I started earlier, Henry, with Cicero's quote that, only a mollified, only a dissipated soul attracts a bee sting. Well, if on the inside we're not mollified, we're not dissipated in any way, we remember ultimately who we are, then the bee stings really don't matter, do they? Or at least they really don't get through a naturally thick skin.
Correct. Yeah, they'll irritate it, and without the allergies, you're not going to swell up like a balloon. But you just deal with the pain and the bee sting, and that's really all it's intended to be. And I think even today, especially today, with so many people having so many opinions that don't matter, it is people are getting hurt. They hurt their feelings. And they got to stop. It's not so much that you have the right to say pretty much whatever you want, but we also have the right to tune out if we don't want to listen. Right. And if you're being attacked, then don't listen. Don't. It's stuff you can't take personal. I mean, as you well know, being in the public eye, you in being both a police officer in New York, and now being on the radio, you've faced your brunt of name calling,
sure.
And you simply deal with it. That's what being a human is simply dealing with this stuff, and it's you move on.
Well, I think
as soon as it's said, it's in the past.
That's true. As soon as it's said, it's already an echo, right? So it's an echo that you're letting derail your day. It's not even happening in that particular instant in all of time. Let me say hello real quick to Thomas. Thomas, nice to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. We're talking about Cicero's sense of only a mollified soul sets itself up to be stung by a bee, right? Only a dissipated soul. Only, when you think about the difference between concave and convex, if you're concave, it's kind of welcoming the slings and arrows. If you're convex, not so much. I like Talib's book in terms of fragility and anti-fragile. But I'm beginning to wonder if some of these people, on the far ends of all the spectrums, and we used to be able to say, well, the political left, and you'd think it only happens in this country. It's happening all over the world. But the intelligentsia, the egoistas, as I like to call them, with no skin in the game, perfectly content picking a fight and then stepping out of the way for everyone else to mix it up. If you're still listening, I remember, hello, Thomas. I remember way back when Brian and I, years ago, in a brawl in a bar, and someone hollered out Brian, and we both turned at the same time. What? Right? But at least then his rugby team, my the off-duty the police team, at least we were willing to mix it up right there. But you see what happens with these, and we talked earlier, Henry, about these tweets. People put up these really vicious tweets, and then when they get some blowback, they delete the tweet. At least have the courage, have the guts, have the fortitude to stand by what you thought was so cute and crafty and cunning and comedic. At least stand by it. Don't be gutless and then pull it down like it was never there. I mean, you get to look back on life and go, oh, wow, I never. Yeah, you did. So what happens to people where they think gullible and gutless is a good way to go through life?
Well, apparently, or again, not feeling they have the responsibility. So, I better change this. But yeah, to have the thought enter the head, that's the first thing. But then to let it come out in written form or verbally is the step that's the filter between our conscious and our ego. And sometimes when you allow ego to take the control, it's going to come out of your mouth as soon as there's a thought, or there is no thought, it just simply comes out. and you really are responsible for it, regardless. You can't point the finger at someone else for what you said and what you wrote. And again, that's responsibility. We have to do that.
And I think another responsibility that we have, Henry, is that when it comes to this concept, you mentioned law enforcement earlier, when it comes to this concept of a depraved indifference to human life, and you see a lot of the things going on in the news now, a lot of things you see going on social media, it's just a depraved indifference. We've heard of the Trump derangement syndrome. Well, there's a human derangement syndrome. That anyone that wants to be happy, anyone that wants to be successful, anyone that wants to put their heart's highest priority top of the list is automatically a target by all these egoistas that don't have the courage to get in and to mix it up, that don't have the mud and the dirt on their face, that don't subject themselves to risk. And they're busy bad-mouthing everyone else, but they never come out of the bubble wrap. They're still riding their bicycles with training wheels. They're still at the public pool swimming with water wings, but they're willing to take a crack at everybody else. They're just cowards.
Well, it's like the armchair quarterback. It's really easy to sit down and call a play, and then when you watch what they did, you see, I told you I was right. It's easy to be the armchair quarterback, or the guy that sits, or the people that sit and criticize an action that's been going on, how people have responded to something. But until you walk in their shoes, you really have no right to judge anybody. We don't, and I think that's the largest part of it. There are those that are trying to change themselves and be respectful and do the things the way they believe is supposed to be done right. And then there's the ones that you just mentioned that just simply believe they can do anything that they want to, and they're not responsible. And that's what needs to change. If you looked at it and had the ability to pull the shade down, clean up the playing field, and raise the shade back up, and everybody loved each other and everybody got along, and we didn't have borders, and we didn't have all of this discrimination, and we didn't have all of this these extraneous races outside the human race. Yeah, would the world be a better place? Well, we certainly would get along. We wouldn't have any reason to be fighting each other. Mm-hmm. The problem, that's just pie in the sky, and it's never going to happen, is we still have to deal with ego, and that's really what we're dealing with here, is simply somebody saying something out of context, off color, directed to hurt somebody's feelings, mm-hmm. and that makes them feel superior. Well, that's the way they are.
Well, and it's an inferior position to think that you can make yourself feel superior by putting another person down, right? It's just, what's fascinating to me is at a time where it looks like, because it's basically assisted suicide. If you're going to buy into all the gutless behavior, if you're going to buy into all the name calling, if you're going to buy into all these other things, it's really just an assisted human suicide. That sooner or later, someone will get the weapon, someone's eggshell of an ego will be fractured in such a way that we lose the third of the planet. And then that ego is going to have to respond, because you can't be the ego that lets that ego launch a missile at you. Before we know it, it'll be over. Right? All because no one would stand up to the gutless. No one would stand up to career architects of the human mind, right? Like here's your politics, here's your religion, here's your thought process, here's all the different things that we get to tell you top down, not bottom up, but top down. We're going to tell you how to be. Mm-hmm. And look at the condition our world is in because of it.
That's right. That's right. And we stand back and we allow it to happen. We don't take control. We don't do the things that we can do. We unify. The best way to handle what's going on, understand that there are so few authority figures within the population. When you look at it, there are almost 8 billion of us, and even maybe a million of politicians around the world. Maybe even 10 million. It is a far cry from 8 billion people, and the whole way that they can keep us maintained and controlled is simply keep us divided in every possible way. Draw borders, create fear, utilize differences in religions, and you've separated everybody down into these nice little tiny groups that are very, very controllable, and we're one of them.
Well, you know, what's interesting, Dan just said to me in a text, Henry, we're talking about also the importance of boundaries, that a lot of people, and in terms of his definition, one of his thoughts about Gutless is that it's okay to set up those boundaries. And I love the idea of boundaries, especially I love the idea of boundaries when it comes to not having to listen to all the vitriol, not having to listen to as we talk about the slings and arrows, right? Not having to listen to all the graffiti, the philosophical graffiti that people throw your way when you decide to put your heart's highest priority top of the list. So I love those boundaries. There's a boundary, right, that allows you to protect your all-natural being, that allows you to protect that sense of who you truly are. Just like if you're in the outdoor industry, right? If it's going to be cold weather, you wear a down jacket. If it's going to be raining, you wear Gore-Tex or you wear boots. If you're going to, if you're going to go scuba diving, you take a snorkel. But it's all an attempt to keep the environment from encroaching on you. And we'll do it all day. We'll take umbrellas. But the one thing we'll let encroach, without any real question, the one thing we'll let encroach is the rhetoric of someone that's hell-bent on attacking us. So for me, I just think, what can we do? How is it that you get to the point where, because I'd like to look back. I think all the time that I'd like to look back and go, I saw a T-shirt the other day, Henry, it said, fun fact, well, I don't care about your opinion. Right? And I laughed, right? Because that just, so I had to order one, right? But how do we get to that point?
We have to undo what's been done.
Sure.
And there's so much that's been done. This is part of the whole book series, the book that I'm trying to work on and get finished for everybody, is really goes into literally it's sort of taking things apart and re-engineering them, reverse engineering them, to give a better understanding as to how invasive all of this has been and how it has occurred to us that we have no clue it's even happened to us. Everything that and looking just within our generation or within the generations that are listening, we've gone from just the purity of having been created,
mm-hmm.
and then we come out and we start learning how, don't touch the stove because it's hot. Don't grab the egg because you'll break it. Don't spill your milk. We get this programming, and programming isn't correct. It's really more learning on what not to do. And most of us learn by doing. So someone says, "Don't touch the stove." I'm the kind of one that says, "Oh, okay, I'm going to go check it out."
Right.
And I learned, "Don't touch the stove." Okay, now I know. And I'm not going to go do that again. But so much of that is obviously part of learning. But it's not by being kept from experiencing it. Most times we're not learning it correctly, or fear is placed in
Sure.
there instead of just common sense. And that is part of what we're dealing with in this existence, is this amount of fear that has been taught to us, that it's now down to the point to where, think about it, you fear, of course, people fear dying,
mm-hmm.
but we fear losing our homes, our jobs, we fear losing money, we fear our neighbors, we fear the people driving down the street or walking down the street. We fear everything.
Sure.
And that's where we have to start taking control. And yes, you need to place up boundaries at times to keep you protected. Once
Sure.
you start to change, as more people change, then the less need we have for boundaries, because we're not out there hurting each other. We're out there actually helping each other.
And I would say that a part of that is enabling that hurt, right? Because I've said many times in the past that only the offendable can be offended. In order to be offended, in order to be shamed by another person, you have to first be ashamed about your boundaries. You have to,
Yes.
at the very least, you have to, look, in order to be offended, you have to be offendable. And if you decide one day, yeah, I just don't care about your opinion.
Yeah.
I can't even say it with a straight face, right? I can't even say it without just going, okay, great. If that's what it's going to take to put your heart's highest priority top of your list, to be able to ignore. It's not, we hear all this time that one of the things we're up against in human life is toxic masculinity. I don't see it as being that at all. I see it as being toxic sensitivity, where everyone's looking to be offended. Everyone's looking to be outraged. Everyone's looking to be mortally wounded. Everyone's looking to be fill in the blank.
Yeah. It's become an expectation.
Sure.
To where, you expect to be told, you want to hear you've done a good job, but we're expecting to hear, you could do better, or there's something you could have done in a better way. Criticism, and because the way it's been presented anymore, it used to be you got constructive criticism. Listen, you're doing the best you can here. Let me give you some more tools so you can do a better job.
Sure.
And no one seems to have time for that anymore. That compassion. It's you're doing this wrong, and that's fine. We don't need you anymore. There's no time anymore for anybody to make a mistake. Make one mistake and you're out. There are some jobs where you don't make a mistake because it could cost you your life, like being a New York City cop, or being in the military. But most jobs aren't that way, but yet we have these built-in expectations based on everything going around us, that we expect this is what's going to happen. We're going to get our feelers hurt. There's nothing we can do about that. It's just going to happen. It's just a matter of when. Well, we do have control over that.
And I would say that to want to live life outside of being hurt, to want to live life inside of a bubble, you're ultimately not challenging yourself to any degree that could ultimately be responsible for putting that smile on your face. So we run around because we want to be protected. We run around because we want to be nurtured. We run around because we want, to find a safe space. But the beauty of life is its ability to never have to look at a safe space. Right? The beauty of life is that you're fragile, but even in that fragility, you're willing to stand and face whatever the slings and arrows are.
Right.
I think.
Right. When our fight, flight, or freeze pattern within our system that's naturally there, that component of us in our subconscious, it was there designed for a reason. And when you're chased by a bear, yes, you need to make sure that you can outrun whoever you're next to. But we don't live in that type of an environment anymore. We really don't. And so the need for it has diminished. The problem with it is that because of the stresses we place on ourselves, one, living it with guilt and dwelling about the past, worrying about the future, worrying about our job, worrying about our neighbor, he just bought a new gun, worrying about if I'm going to get this promotion or not. I hate my job, but I'm going to go do it anyway because I can't afford to lose the money. It will lose the house. I can't afford to have the next child. We have replaced that fight, flight, or freeze with constant 24/7 stress. The body was never designed to handle that.
Well, it is the balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. If you're constantly enveloped in the sympathetic nervous system, constantly tearing the body down, there's no time left, no energy, literally no energy left for the parasympathetic to rebuild. So you're constantly tearing down, but never replenishing. John says, divest, unlearn, learn. Reinvest, create new, invest where the connections are real and in alignment with our principles. Reject and divest from everything that's not in an alignment. I would absolutely agree, Henry, as I'm sure you would with John. It's what dovetails with your all-natural being, what dovetails with putting your heart's highest priority top of your list. Because I can't believe that ultimately there's a heart's highest priority that would have a depraved indifference from human life. Maybe the ego is going to be sidetracked in some of these people, but when you're following your heart's highest priority, it's very seldom one that allows you to have a depraved indifference to your life or to any life around you.
Yeah, when you're following your all-natural being, your ego has been placed on the back burner. You've got control of it, so it's no longer influencing you. You recognize when it's trying to rear its ugly head, but you've set it back in its place, and you function within reality rather than within this illusion that ego tries to create. So yes, you do. You actually can function properly. And when you do that, your stress levels are down. You no longer are being afflicted.
Sure.
Your immune system is functioning a lot better. You're not getting sick like we do.
Sure.
It's amazing the difference, just simply setting ego aside and putting yourself as the priority. It's just amazing.
Henry, we're going to have to get ready to run because I said that we'd get out by the top of the hour, but I know you have some really great audio that went up on SoundCloud today. Where can people get the links? And also I'd ask if you could post it over here in the feed. But for people listening on IPM Nation, where can they get to the links to the audio that you recorded and then also some of the writing that you did today?
Just go to http://www.henrygnoel.com, and you'll see a tab that says podcasts, and it's down there. There's several of them up there. The very bottom one is the newest one, and so you're certainly welcome to go there to take a look at it or to take a listen to it. And there's a lot of other writings and stuff under My Thoughts, which is another tab there, and you can really get an idea of, well, how crazy I really am, where I'm coming from. It does help.
Very cool. All right, check that out. We're going to go ahead and let you go now, Henry, and then we will look forward to catching up with you. I think we're probably going to be hanging out a little bit tomorrow evening, and then here in the States will be the 4th of July. Thank you, Henry, very much for posting that in the thread. And then probably I'll take the evening off for the 4th of July. To celebrate here in the States, and then we'll look to next Thursday or this coming Thursday and Friday. But thank you so much for calling in. Thank you for the time and for the great audio today. I truly enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to hanging out with you tomorrow.
You got it, Brian. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Henry. You too. All right, my friends, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Don't forget, we're soon going to be moving our programming. We're probably going to go for 3 hours is what we're thinking on. We always like to post it here in the thread and go, what would you like? If we had a 3-hour call-in show, how would that work? Don't forget to mark it down, 855-488-5377, 855. If you've got an example of Gutless, I want to hear about it. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. We will see you back tomorrow night. Have an absolutely fantastic evening.
IPMNation.com.